Good afternoon. We will pay attention to the perpetual inventory system when the FIFO method of inventory valuation is used. Now remember, in the perpetual inventory system, you will calculate the value of your inventory after you sold goods or when you purchase goods. In the FIFO method, the first goods will be sold first. So first in, the first purchases will be sold first out, so it goes out first. So if I want to calculate the cost of sales, I take my opening inventory, then the next purchases. If I want to calculate my closing inventory will be included in the last purchases and perhaps the second last purchases. So just picture it carefully that you know how to calculate the cost of sales or how to calculate the closing inventory. Now, in the first question, they say that the owner is aware that some of the rugby balls were stolen from the storeroom during April 29. So that means that's during this financial year, at the beginning of the year. And they want you to know what was the number of units that was sold. So if I look at the beginning of the year, we had 420 units that was sold at 120. We purchased 2,900. So now I can calculate how many units were sold. So the number of units that you should have. So it means if nothing was stolen, it means that I will take my opening inventory, that was 420 units. I will add all the units that we purchased, and that was 2,900. So I will add the 2,900, and then the ones that's left over at the end of the year, they say we've sold 2,200, we've only got 1,080 left over, so I must now subtract the 2,200 to see if I get to 1,080. So the units sold was 2,200. That means my closing inventory should be 1,120. And they tell me that according to the inventory count at the end of the year, there's only 1,080 left over. So according to the actual inventory that's on hand in the storeroom is 1,080, and if I subtract it from each other, it means the number of balls stolen was 40 balls. Okay, what double entry should you make if these missing balls? Now, if we look at my trading stock account, in my trading stock account, I will start with the opening balance, and I will say at the beginning of the year, the value of the goods in the stock account was 50,400. The units that we purchased cost 406,000. So we will add 406,000. Then I will look at the cost of stock loss, and that means that I must take for the stock loss the number of balls that were stolen, and that was 40 balls. Those balls cost 120, so if I multiply it with 120, I get 4,800. So the balls stolen was 4,800. And then I will show my closing balance, and I will show my cost of sales. So what do I do in the perpetual system when there's a fire or a burglary or an inventory deficit? I credit my trading stock account to indicate that this asset decreases, and I debit stock loss or inventory deficit so that I can deduct it from my profit to increase my net profit at the end of the year. So this double entry that I will do here will be debit trading deficit or trading loss, inventory loss, debit inventory or trading stock loss, and credit trading stock to indicate that my asset decreased. Okay, and that's the 4,800 Rand that I will do in the journal. Okay, name and explain 2 ways that you can prevent this inventory loss. Now, the first thing that you must think of is that there must be a division of duties so that the same person is not responsible for ordering the goods, receiving it when it's delivered, issuing it to the shop, because then there can be a loss of stock. So you should have different people that's responsible for the different duties. You should have a regular stock count so that you can determine quickly if there's any stock left over that's not correct, that we know there was something stolen, so that we can prevent it in future. Then it means that we can, for instance, improve the security. So they can have someone at the door of the storeroom to ensure that nobody goes in the storeroom except the people that's responsible for the stock in the storeroom. At the end of the day, the security can check all the employees to see that they haven't stolen anything. When customers leave the business, the security can see if there's anything that they took that was not paid for. Okay, the next question is calculate the value of stock on hand at the end of the year. Okay, so if I look at my closing stock, that is 1,080 balls. Okay, now that closing stock is included in this last purchases. So it means it's 600 balls that we purchase for 160 Rand, and that will give me 96,000. Okay, my closing stock consists of 1080 balls, so it means that I will subtract the 600 to see how many we sold out of the previous purchases, and that means that I must indicate that we sold 480 from the second last purchases, and that was 130 Rand. So I will multiply the 480 with the 130, and that will give me 62,400. And that means my closing stock is with 158,400. Now, if I look at these figures, then I can see immediately why they've lost balls, because their inventory is too much. They just have so many balls. They can't sell all these balls in a short period, so they must reduce the rugby balls, and they must take the 420 at the beginning of the year and say, okay, let's have a special, for instance, at the beginning of the year so that we can sell the old balls. Then they mustn't buy so many of these balls if they don't sell them quickly enough, because now at the end of the year, the stock increased from 420 balls to 1,080. So it means now they've got more balls at the end of the year in the closing stock. So this causes a lot of extra expenses if you have a large amount of stock, because your money is tied up in stock. It is not creating a profit for you. Secondly, you have a lot of extra expenses to pay for security, insurance, storage. The risk of theft is much bigger. So it's much better to have a smaller amount of stock to prevent stock being stolen or damaged. Okay, in the next question, they ask you to do the cost of sales. Okay, so I'm going to look at my opening stock was given to me, the 50,400. And we purchased 406,000. Then the amount that was stolen, we calculated as 40 balls at 4,800. So it means that I must deduct that 4,800 because it's not part of the cost of sales. And then my closing inventory I've just calculated as 158,400. And if I do this calculation, I see that my cost of sales is 293,200. I can also calculate the cost of sales in a different way. So if they don't give me enough information, I must be able to do it from the information that was given. So it means of that 420 balls, 40 was stolen. So we've got the 420 minus the 40, and that, if I multiply that with 120, so it's 380 times 120, it will give me 45,600. Okay, then the next purchases was 1,100 balls, and we paid for it 140 Rand, and that gave me 154,000. Okay, so we had 2,200 balls that was sold. The first ones that was sold was the old stock, less the theft, so it's 380. Then from your first purchases, you sold 1,100. So it means there was 720 needed out of the second purchases. So the 720, I will multiply with the price that we paid there, 130, and that will give me 93,600. And I will get the same cost of sales that I calculated in the other method. But you must be able either to do it in the trading statement to get the unknown figure, or you can use the information that was given to you. Okay, if we look at our trading stock account, it means that we can put all the information that was given to us in this account. My closing balance of my trading stock, we calculated as 158,400. And I calculated my cost of sales now as 293,200. Okay, and then I will bring down that balance. So the next year we start with 158,400 value of balls that consist of 1,080 balls. That indicates that there's too much stock in this business.